Hello, everyone. My name is Seth, and today I wanted to go over a list of my favorite Star Wars movies. I've mentioned before that Star Wars is my absolute favorite. If you were to ask me what my favorite movie is, I will just have to say Star Wars in general because it is so hard for me to pick one. If I was doing a top 10 favorite movie list of all time, I would have to include Star Wars just as one because I wouldn't really want my top three taken up by the original trilogy. So I love Star Wars. You see, I got so many Star Wars figures behind me. I mentioned I have lightsabers over here. Like I absolutely love Galaxy's Edge Disney World. Like I felt at home when I went to Galaxy's Edge. I love Star Wars so much. And so with Star Wars Celebration coming up here in the next couple weeks, I wanted to go through my list from bottom to top of the Star Wars movies. Now, before I go any further, go ahead and hit the like button, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you can receive notifications for when I upload my next video. Number 12 at the bottom is Attack of the Clones. Only gave it 2 out of 5 stars, so not great as a movie overall, but it's still Star Wars. It's still like part of the family. Even bad Star Wars is still Star Wars. But yeah, episode 2, Attack of the Clones, is my least favorite. I think it is probably, in terms of what they were trying to accomplish, maybe the least successful. I think it sets up some good ideas. You'll hear this a lot, especially with the prequel trilogy. There's so many good ideas. It's just the execution that did not work. I will say that Attack of the Clones is the movie that got me into Star Wars. I was young when they were coming out. I did not get to see A Phantom Menace in theaters. I did not get to see Attack of the Clones in theaters. However, I remember seeing trailers on TV for Attack of the Clones at one of my friend's house, and I just thought, wow, that looks really cool. What is that? He asked me, "You've never seen Star Wars?" I said, "No, what is that? That looks really cool." And he said, "All right, well, I'm going to show you what Star Wars is." And so he went and got the old VHS tapes of the original trilogy, and the rest of that day, that's what we watched. And I was absolutely in love with Star Wars from that moment on. Here at 11, I will have to give it to Star Wars The Clone Wars. Again, good ideas. It's a good start to the Clone Wars show. I love the Clone Wars show. It has some really great Star Wars stuff in it. It tells some really good stories, and it's surprisingly mature for something that originally aired on Cartoon Network. The movie really was like the first couple of episodes, first few kind of put together into a movie, and that wasn't necessarily that successful for me as a movie, but recognizing it as a part of a show, great start, no problem. But as a movie, that's going to end up toward the bottom of my list. Here at number 10 is Phantom Menace, and like I said before, it has some great ideas, just not necessarily the best execution. However, that gave us Darth Maul, and everything to do with Darth Maul is awesome. Speaking of the Clone Wars in the last one, go watch the Clone Wars series for some really good Darth Maul stuff. Go watch some Rebels for some really good Darth Maul stuff. But that fight at the end with Darth Maul, that's perfect. Next is Revenge of the Sith, and these are movies that I actually would consider to be good. It would get a positive score from me on Rotten Tomatoes. It was the first Star Wars movie that I got to see in theaters. And this, again, suffers from a lot of the issues that the prequel trilogy suffers from. Bad writing, stiff performances for the most part, guess you could say like an overuse of CGI, a lack of reliance upon some of like the models and some of the practical effect. Like in all the prequels, there was a lot that just kind of felt fake. But you could tell that this was more of the story that George Lucas wanted to tell. He really wanted to tell that story of Anakin turning to the dark side. Overall, this movie is okay, but again, it gave us some great moments and some great action. Here at number 8 is the Rise of Skywalker. I do not hate this as much as everybody else does. I really don't. Maybe part of it is that I have some nostalgia for it. I got to see this movie at Disney on my honeymoon on opening night. Like, that was an incredible experience. And endings are so hard. I'm not trying to make any excuses, but endings are incredibly difficult. It's so hard to wrap up stories for one movie, let alone basically 8 others that came before it. So they had a tall task ahead of them. And I kind of feel like a lack of planning did kind of come back to bite them in this. They didn't really have a plan for the sequel trilogy, which I feel like they should have at that point. But also, to be fair, the original trilogy didn't have a plan either. And look how that turned out. I feel like they should have leaned more into making it its own thing. This really felt a little bit more like a sequel to The Force Awakens instead of a sequel to The Last Jedi. And I'm not saying it needed to be exactly the same as The Last Jedi. However, I am saying I think it would have been interesting if they would have taken more cues, I guess I would say, from that original kind of Duel of the Fates script that was kind of floating around that Colin Trevorrow was working on. I don't think that movie would have necessarily been great based off of what I've seen and read from it, but something a little bit more along those lines I feel like would have worked better. And I don't care about bringing back Palpatine. I don't think that was a bad idea. You absolutely could make it work. I don't think it works as badly as everybody else says, but it wasn't necessarily the best. And I feel like there were some missed opportunities. I feel like that's kind of the biggest theme of The Rise of Skywalker. It's just some missed opportunity. Now, number 7 on my list is Solo, a Star Wars story. And I had a lot of fun with Solo. I think Alden Ehrenreich was great as a young Han Solo. He did such a good job. I just feel like the timing of this was super unfortunate. There was some drama behind the scenes when they were first starting shooting. Lord and Miller were supposed to be the directors on it. They ended up letting them go, and Ron Howard came in and finished the film. And I thought he did a very good job, and I had a lot of fun with this. The first 20 minutes, to me, I thought, I was like, oh no, we might be in trouble. I did not like the first 20 minutes, but then I really feel like it found its stride after that first 20, 25 minutes, and then it just went. And I really enjoyed it. Next, number 6 for me is The Last Jedi, and I thought that was really well made. I think Rian Johnson did a good job. Although he did a lot of things that I wouldn't have done, I can respect it. And I can accept it, and I can just move on with it and accept the story as it is and understand. I think they still told an interesting story. I love the idea between the Force dyad and things like that they were bringing up. And I really like the message of that, basically saying like, hey, Rey's a nobody because greatness can come from anywhere. Again, I didn't necessarily agree with making Luke Skywalker kind of a grumpy, get off my lawn kind of guy, but it kind of makes sense. You see his character develop in the original trilogy. It makes sense that that's kind of where he might would end up when faced with adversity. And he did the ultimate Jedi act there at the end with the Force projection and giving his life to save his friends and family. Like, that was the ultimate Jedi move. Although I really would have liked to see him survive past that, I still enjoyed The Last Jedi, and it definitely took me on a ride that I was not expecting. Next at number 5 is Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, and this is just awesome, pure Star Wars war film kind of stuff. This ended up being exactly what I was wanting and exactly what I was expecting. I loved all of the new characters it introduced. I loved everything revolving around the Death Star and how closely intertwined it was with A New Hope. It was amazing. I walked out of that blown away. The visuals in that are incredible. So if for some reason you're watching this, you have not seen Rogue One, go see it. It is on Disney Plus. Get it on DVD. I don't care. Make sure you see this movie. It is so good. All of the characters they introduced, you end up loving. It's just a great addition to the Star Wars universe. Next to number 4 is The Force Awakens. And this was as good as you could have hoped it would have been. Making sequels set about 40 years after the original trilogy is tough, but man, did they nail this one. They knocked this out of the park. It was such a good beginning for a trilogy, and I love all the characters that they introduced. I loved the way that they brought in the legacy characters. They just did this right. I don't care if people say, oh, well, it's just a remake of A New Hope. So, A New Hope is amazing. So, I love this. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I saw this in theaters. The hype around this was so real. That was back before you got to have any kind of stadium seating in theaters and getting your own seat. So I remember having to get there like an hour and a half, 2 hours before my showing was starting just to get a decent seat in the theater. And just like the buzz around it was just incredible. Like, I loved the whole merch drop, and like I was there going to Target looking for stuff just to buy. Like, I was here. The movie was awesome. It absolutely deserves to be number 4 below the original trilogy for me. And then number 3 is A New Hope. It's the thing that started it all. There's not much more that I can say about the original trilogy that hasn't already been said, other than seeing these movies put me on a path as a kid. It just put me on a path to where I am now as an adult. Like, it helped spark my creativity, and it helped spark my love of movies and film, and wanting to learn how some of this was done, and getting involved in things like that, and learning about production and screenwriting and special effects and everything. Like, this was it. This started it all. And I'm not alone. Like, my story's not necessarily unique. There's been tons of kids since 1977 that has had the same story as me. But in my opinion, the only things that top A New Hope is number 2 for me, Empire Strikes Back. And that might surprise some of you, and ask me on a different day, and Empire Strikes Back might be number 1. Now, I will say maybe I can concede with you that Empire Strikes Back might be a better film as a whole than Return of the Jedi. But if we're talking favorites, again, that can change from day to day. I think I might have to put Empire Strikes Back in number 2. This is the hardest decision for me personally, deciding between these two, 1 and 2. It's just everything about this is perfect. You always talk about what sequels were better than the originals. Empire Strikes Back. You talk about, oh, this is the Empire Strikes Back of this franchise, or this is the Empire Strikes Back of this franchise. Like, there's a reason why this is as beloved as it is. I love The Empire Strikes Back. It is absolutely incredible. One of my favorite movies of all time. And here at number 1 is Return of the Jedi. At least for now. Again, like I said, ask me tomorrow and it might be Empire Strikes Back. But Return of the Jedi, like I said about endings earlier, it is so hard to end something. It's so hard to come up with an ending for one singular story, let alone to come up with an ending to conclude this trilogy. And not just a trilogy, but like the trilogy, if you know what I mean. They finished this so well. They did not have the same issue that the Rise of Skywalker ended up having, trying to end everything. They ended this so well. And I think that's one of the things that makes me respect it as much as I do. I love seeing Luke as a Jedi. He's probably my favorite Jedi. I love getting to see Luke pop up in The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and things like that. Like, I love everything about this, from how it opens, the middle, to how it concludes there with Darth Vader facing off against Luke in the Emperor's throne room, him throwing down his lightsaber saying, "No, I'm a Jedi like my father before me." Like, it just hits me here every time. Like, I love this movie so much. I love all of these movies so much. So that's it. That's my list. Thank you so much for sitting and listening to me gush about Star Wars for however long this video is. Thank you for indulging me. And I'm so looking forward to seeing if any movie gets announced at Celebration. There's rumors there's going to be. Who knows? We'll see. But again, thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. What is your favorite Star Wars movie? Go ahead and like the video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you can receive notifications when I upload my next video. And I'll see you next time.